Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
Gravitas, co-presented by Skoda Superb, best in next class. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
Unfortunate situation, like even living in London.
Déjà vu is a French phrase which means already seen. It's the feeling that one has lived through the present situation before. It's safe to assume that nobody wanted a sense of déjà vu for this pandemic. And yet, here we are. Another round of lockdowns, another set of travel bans, cancelled flights, panic buying, and a cancelled Christmas. The United Kingdom is a country in crisis. A new mutated version of the Wuhan virus is spelling disaster. The government has had to impose tough measures because this virus, the mutated Wuhan virus, spreads 70% faster than the regular strain. And it couldn't have come at a worse time. Health services are already under strain. With the vaccines being rolled out, people were looking forward to life beyond the pandemic. Now they're again under lockdown. Tonight on Gravitas, we'll bring you up to speed with the situation in the United Kingdom. We'll discuss what the virus and its mutations mean for us. And the vaccines we're ordering, will they still work? Also, if this is the beginning of Pandemic 2.0, we'll talk about that. Also on the show tonight, after months of sparring in the ruling coalition, Nepal's parliament is dissolved. What happens next? We'll bring you an update. Japan's defense budget has seen a record spike as Tokyo firms up its defenses against an expansionist China. World leaders are taking the jab on camera to encourage people, but Brazil's president says a vaccine may turn you into a crocodile. He said that. And the world is watching a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle in the sky, the Jupiter-Saturn Great Conjunction. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
Iran on Monday warned the U.S. following a rocket attack against the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has blamed Iran-backed militias, condemning Pompeo's remarks. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman has warned the United States to not start a fire and wage conflict. After months of negotiations, U.S. lawmakers have agreed on a long-awaited COVID-19 relief bill worth $900 billion.
We've agreed to a package of nearly $900 billion. It is packed with targeted policies that help struggling Americans.
The aid bill is expected to boost unemployment payments and provide relief to small businesses. Taiwan's Navy and Air Force were deployed after a Chinese aircraft carrier group led by the country's newest carrier, the Shandong, sailed through the sensitive Taiwan Strait, a day after a U.S. warship transited the same waterway. The development comes at a time of heightened tensions between Taipei and Beijing. A well-known actress who is one of the most high-profile supporters of Thailand's pro-democracy protest movement has been charged with violation of the country's harsh law against defaming the monarchy. Inthira Sai Sharanpura has given material support and raised funds for the student-led movement. She is not known to have spoken publicly about the royal institution. Germany and Finland have repatriated 5 women and 18 children from Syrian camps housing suspected family members of Islamic State terrorists. The foreign ministries of both nations said the women and children were brought back this weekend for humanitarian reasons. South Korea's capital, Seoul, and surrounding areas have banned gatherings of more than 4 people over the Christmas and New Year holidays. The country recorded its highest daily coronavirus death toll on Monday. The ban on gatherings applies to all indoor and outdoor functions except funerals and weddings. Residents of Hawaii have been asked to stay indoors after the Kilauea volcano on Hawaii's Big Island erupted on Sunday night. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory recorded an earthquake of magnitude 4.4. India's leopard population has increased more than 60% over the previous estimate in 2014. India now has almost 13,000 leopards in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Manchester United have climbed to third in the English Premier League after thrashing old rivals Leeds United 6-2. Scott McTominay became the first player in tournament history to score twice in the opening 3 minutes, and further goals from Bruno Fernandes and Victor Lindelof put the game to bed before half-time. Leeds pulled a goal back before further strikes from Daniel James and Fernandes, and a second consolation for the visitors in the second half. England's Lee Westwood has been named the European Tour Golfer of the Year for the 4th time. The 47-year-old began the year with victory at the Abu Dhabi Championship in January and ended it by winning the race to Dubai after finishing runner-up to Matthew Fitzpatrick in the DP World Tour Championship. Westwood was the oldest ever winner of the Harold Varden Trophy, and the 20-year span between his first and latest triumph is also a European Tour record.
1 year into this pandemic, the lockdowns are back. Flights are being banned again. And even with the vaccines rolling out, the number of new cases is rising. The victim this time is the United Kingdom. A new strain of the Wuhan virus has gone out of control here. You may have heard about this, the mutant Wuhan virus. The situation is quite serious. This one is more infectious. It spreads 70% faster than other variants. It was first detected in September. By November, about a quarter of cases in London were of this new variant. By December, it spread to more people. 2/3 of the total infections were of this mutant Wuhan virus. More cases were reported last week. In London, they doubled, with at least 60% of the patients carrying this new strain. Now, with numbers like these, you can imagine how quickly this variant can and has spread.
The new variant is out of control and we need to bring it under control, and this news about the new variant has been an incredibly difficult end to, frankly, an awful year, and it's important for everybody to essentially act like they might have the virus.
More than 15 million people will remain under lockdown this Christmas in the UK. There's an emergency lockdown in large parts of the country. The rest of the world has shut its borders for Britain. More than 20 countries have now announced travel bans, including India. A ban on flights will begin midnight tomorrow. It is a temporary suspension that will last until the 31st of December. But is this too late? This new strain of the virus has already managed to escape the UK, Australia, Denmark, the Netherlands. These countries have identified patients that have the same mutant Wuhan virus. Reports say Italy too has one case, a patient who recently returned from Britain. Some reports claim that a similar strain has been found in South Africa too, but scientists say it appeared independently. No definitive links to the strain in the UK have been found to this one in South Africa. Now, the question that is on everyone's mind is this: should you be worried if you're not in the UK? Or even if you are, is this mutant virus more dangerous? It moves faster, but that doesn't mean it's more fatal. Here's what Sir Mark Walport, the former chief scientific advisor to the British government, has to say about the findings so far.
This virus has absolutely no emotions whatsoever. It is changing, and it's been necessary to change in response to this new variant, this new strain that's emerging. And these are appropriate restrictions. The new strain is more transmissible. If there's one piece of good news, it doesn't appear so far that it causes any worsening of the disease, which is important. And as far as we know at this stage, the vaccines should still work against it. But it's a difficult time.
Viruses mutate all the time. Even in the case of flu, the virus is constantly changing, which is the reason why flu vaccines are often updated from one season to the next, so that they work during the flu season. The case of the Wuhan virus is no different, really. It has seen many mutations already. Were all of them deadly? The answer is no. Only a handful of these variants were of significance. So what happened in the United Kingdom is not unique, and yet it is significant. In some cases, when a virus mutates, it gets an advantage. In this case, this strain, this new mutated strain, seems to infect the cells of the human body much faster. 70% faster is what experts have established. Changes have been noticed in the spike protein of the virus. What is a spike protein? It is the same protein that binds a virus to the human body. This is what leads to infection. So the latest strain has increased the rate of transmission. More people are getting infected, and this could add to the burden of cases, which is why the United Kingdom found it necessary to impose tougher restrictions. British scientists have published an early description of this variant. It suggests that the new strain could have developed in someone who suffered a chronic infection, possibly because of a weak immune system. The contagious nature of the virus of this particular strain has led to a spike in cases. So as we wind down 2020, it looks like things will get worse before getting better. And as we said, for the United Kingdom, it could not have been a worse end to the year. Christmas has been cancelled in this country. Travel has been banned. An emergency lockdown has been announced. The UK is now being called the sick man of Europe. Here's a report.
London has shut down again. 2 national lockdowns have failed to rein in the virus in the United Kingdom. It has returned in a mutated version, forcing millions to cancel their Christmas plans. Breaking the bad news was the Prime Minister himself.
I want to be clear, we don't want to, as I say, to ban Christmas, to cancel it. And I think that would be, frankly, inhuman and against the instincts of many people in this country. We must, I'm afraid, look again at Christmas. And as Prime Minister, it's my duty to take difficult decisions, to do what is right to protect the people of this country. Given the early evidence we have on this new variant of the virus, the potential risk it poses, it is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned.
The sudden change in plans has led to chaos. Soon after this statement from Prime Minister Boris Johnson, British citizens made a final dash to the stores to wrap up Christmas shopping before the lockdown. Train stations and airports were packed, with people trying to leave London. Now, with the travel bans kicking in, confused passengers are wondering what next.
Pretty historic town. Basically, I had been here for last 8 to 7 years as a visitor, and I'm confused at this time. Basically, when I arrived here on 14 December, situation is totally different. It's hard time here.
There's not a lot of people traveling, obviously. It's kind of weird. It's actually a little bit easier to get in and out, but the restrictions on travel is a lot harder. It's tough to see family, so few can get by.
Europe has shut its doors to the UK. A necessary step, as the British government declared the new variant of the Wuhan virus is out of control. The surge in fresh cases continues across Europe. More than 15 million cases have been reported from the continent. Over the weekend, Boris Johnson said he is hoping to avoid a third national lockdown. But the British Health Minister has refused to rule one out.
Not necessarily. One of the reasons we brought in the strict travel movements on Tier 4, saying stay local and stay at home, and in fact stay local wherever you are across the UK, one of the reasons we brought that in is to try to stop this new variant from spreading.
More than 100,000 people have already been vaccinated in the UK. But on Sunday, the cases surged by more than 35,000. The highest daily rise since the start of the pandemic. Even with the vaccines rolling out, the British government faces an uphill battle in their fight against the Wuhan virus. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
From headlines on vaccines to now a mutated virus leading to a lockdown. Are we staring at pandemic 2.0? Not fear-mongering, just stating the facts. Look at the trends and numbers. What we face right now is an advanced and scarier version of the Wuhan virus. And what we're entering is a new phase of the pandemic. Let's begin with the numbers. As of 21st of December, the total number of Wuhan virus cases the world over is well above 77 million. The deaths, more than 1.7 million. Two countries have recorded more than 10 million cases, the United States and India. But the country making the headlines now is the United Kingdom. What's happening there? The mutation of the Wuhan virus. A new version has emerged that spreads faster. As we said, mutations are normal. All viruses mutate all the time. The Wuhan virus has also been mutating all over the world. There are at least 4,000 variants of the Wuhan virus. Experts say the mutation began in China. New strains of the virus have been seen across the world. The strain found in Britain is called the 6970 deletion, meaning this variant has missing letters in the genetic code. The strain was picked up in Danish minks too. It was also found in Thailand and Germany and then in England. So what does this mutation mean for you and me? Question number one, is the mutated virus scarier? Yes and no. Data so far does not raise the mortality rate or the risk of severe illness. But, yes, there is a but, the mutated virus found in the UK spreads faster.
New variant not only moves fast, it is increased in terms of its ability to transmit, but it is becoming the dominant variant. It is beating all the others in terms of transmission. So this virus transmits and spreads fast.
So the worry here is about rising infections because it transmits fast. And given that it's the holiday season, many people boarded flights before the travel bans were put in place. The mutated virus may have already traveled to other parts of the globe. It has already been found in Denmark, Australia and the Netherlands. More infections may lead to more hospitalization, and that's something that no country, rich or poor, can afford right now after months of pandemic. Question number two, will the vaccines be able to protect us from the mutated virus? The answer is yes, thankfully. The vaccines will still work. Experts say the Wuhan virus vaccine will be able to produce a whole range of antibodies. Let me tell you how one expert described it. He compared these antibodies to 1,000 big guns pointed at a virus. So it is unlikely that a mutated virus will be able to escape the fire. A vaccine should still be effective. And speaking of vaccines, what about India? India is expected to start its vaccination drive next month. The government has already prioritized 30 crore people. This includes health workers, frontline workers, people above 50 years of age, and those who are below 50 but have certain diseases. India is considering the emergency authorization of the Pfizer vaccine, the Oxford AstraZeneca shot, and the Bharat biotech candidate. As of now, vaccination has begun in the UK, the US, Canada, Russia and China. Other countries have given regulatory approvals and they're waiting for their first batch of shots. This list includes Switzerland, Malaysia, Bahrain, Mexico and the United Arab Emirates. So this is where things stand at the moment. As we wind down this year, the biggest challenge until last month was to find a vaccine. That has been overcome, and we must say it's a huge achievement to find a vaccine so fast. But the pandemic is not over. Producing, transporting, storing, administering this vaccine is going to be a Herculean task. And now we have mutant versions spreading. with faster infections. There is fear, a fresh lockdown, a travel ban. This, as I said, is a déjà vu moment. The challenge before us is to not let history repeat itself this time. But then we have people like these. Before I begin my next story, in fact, I want you to see some images. These are images of leaders from around the world getting vaccinated. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, getting the shot. Reuven Rivlin, the President of Israel, also being vaccinated. Tawfiq al-Rabaya, the Health Minister of Saudi Arabia. Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States. Some of the world's most powerful individuals getting the jab on camera. They are trying to boost shaky public confidence on the safety of vaccines in their respective countries. Now look at these visuals. These are from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Thousands flocking to the city's famed beaches. As the summer starts in the southern hemisphere, no masks, no social distancing, just some volleyballs and lots of beach umbrellas. What explains this? The never-ending pandemic denial of this man, Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, the Trump of the tropics. In fact, comparing him to Donald Trump would not be appropriate anymore because Mr. Bolsonaro is in a league of his own when it comes to denying the severity of this pandemic. When Brazil became the second most infected country in the world, Mr. Bolsonaro was out eating hot dogs and sipping on soft drinks. He said he cannot afford to impose a lockdown. When some Brazilians demanded a lockdown, his government organized anti-lockdown rallies. The 65-year-old attended these rallies. He posed for selfies. He hugged young children. Now, when countries across the world are rolling out vaccines, when there finally seems to be some hope on the horizon, Mr. Bolsonaro says he's not going to take a shot. Why? Because he's already had the virus and has now developed antibodies. So why take the vaccine at all? His exact words. Here they are from the horse's mouth.
If you do not want to be treated, you have the right not to be treated. I decide, for example, not to do chemotherapy, and I decide to die. It's my problem. And we in the federal government have already informed that once the vaccines are approved by the Health Regulation Agency, the vaccine will be offered to everyone. But those who don't want to take it do not have to. I will not take it. Some people say I'm setting a bad example. They say I'm an idiot. I've already had the virus. I have the antibodies. Why take the vaccine again?
Who can argue with that? The denial is bad enough. What follows is even worse. Mr. Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, is also sowing skepticism, talking about the potential side effects of this vaccine. And this is beyond anything we've ever come across. The president has suggested that there's a possibility that the vaccine can turn people into crocodiles, alligators. I'm not making this up. He says the vaccine can make women grow a beard and men talk like women, whatever that's supposed to mean. Bolsonaro says if any of this happens, it won't be his fault. You have to listen to this.
And another thing that has to be made very clear here is that at Pfizer, it's very clear in the contract, we are not responsible for any side effects. So if you become an alligator, it's your problem. I'm not going to talk about another animal because it would not be wise. But if you become a Superman, if some women start to grow a beard, or if some men start to talk like women, it's not going to be my fault. They are playing with our immune system. How can you force someone to take a vaccine that hasn't even completed the third phase?
You saw that. A head of state peddles such wild, far-fetched theories and stories, and the audience responds with an applause. These are seriously crazy times we're living in. And this is no laughing matter anymore. Brazil is the third worst hit country in the world. Leaders in other severely hit countries are taking measures to stop the virus from spreading. Even the US president has now started taking the pandemic seriously. But not Jair Bolsonaro. He continues to live in another reality and is constantly ensuring that this infodemic curve does not flatten. We say it's better to grow a beard or even turn into a crocodile than be dead. Think about it. Meanwhile, in Japan, the government of Yoshihide Suga is reinforcing the country's military might. It has proposed a record $51.7 billion defense budget. $51.7 billion, the 9th consecutive rise in Japan's military spending. Why is it needed? Where will all this money be allocated? And what role does China's military expansionism play in this budget spike? Here's a report.
The 9th consecutive rise in military spending. A record $51.7 billion defense budget. And a comprehensive plan to counter China's growing military power. Japan is reinforcing its military might under the new leadership of Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga.
The national security situation around the country is getting increasingly severe. We need to cope with new areas of national security, such as space, cyber, and the electromagnetic spectrum, beyond the conventional framework of air, land, and sea.
The Ministry of Defense in Japan is set to get a record 5.34 trillion yen, or $51.7 billion budget next year. This budget is aimed at giving Japan's forces new planes, missiles, and aircraft carriers with greater range and potency against China. The purchases will likely include a $40 billion fighter jet being developed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in collaboration with Lockheed Martin. A $323 million anti-ship missile to defend the southwestern Okinawan island chain. $628 million will be spent on obtaining 6 Lockheed F-35 stealth fighters. And $912 million are to be allocated for building 2 compact warships that can operate with fewer sailors.
We, as the Japanese government, need to thoroughly rationalize and make our defense operations more efficient. To correspond to the increasingly severe security environment, we would like to firmly strengthen our defense power while getting people to understand through our explanations at Parliament sessions.
This is a record spike in defense spending in Japan's recent history. Yoshihide Suga is following in the footsteps of his predecessor, Shinzo Abe, who is also focused on military development in Japan. Under Abe, Japan bolstered its defenses in response to a growing military threat from China. A threat that still persists. The PLA's incursions in the East China Sea have not stopped. Just this month, Chinese ships entered the territorial waters of Japan, near the Senkaku Islands. Chinese vessels have also been hovering around Japan's Okinawa island chain. Japan's new budget is largely aimed at safeguarding its sovereignty. The spike in defense spending will go a long way in protecting its coastal territories. Not to mention in countering China's never-ending military expansionism. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Now here's a story from India that's making global headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited a Gurudwara in Delhi on the 20th of December. Why is this news? Because first, it was a surprise visit. There were no police barricades or traffic restrictions put in place for the Prime Minister's visit. And second, the Gurudwara that the Indian Prime Minister visited is an iconic one. Gurudwara Rakabganj Sahib is where the mortal remains of Guru Tegh Bahadur were cremated. He was the 9th Sikh Guru. It was his death anniversary on the 19th of December. The Prime Minister visited the Gurudwara a day later, and at a time when farmers in India are protesting. A lot of these protesters are Sikh. Join the dots now, and you will see that the Indian Prime Minister's visit to the Gurudwara was infused with symbolism. Our next report tells you all about it.
This is the Prime Minister of India, visiting the resting place of the 9th Sikh Guru at Delhi's Gurudwara Rakabganj Sahib, showing solidarity with India's farmers in his own symbolic way. Prime Minister Modi paid tribute to Guru Tegh Bahadur. I, like millions around the world, am deeply inspired by the kindness of Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, the Prime Minister tweeted. The message and the gesture struck a chord. Guru Tegh Bahadur was the embodiment of service and sacrifice. He was born as Tial Mul. As a boy, he studied Sikh scriptures and weaponry in Amritsar, Punjab. His father, Guru Hargobind, was the 6th Sikh Guru. He was also the first Guru to raise arms against religious prejudice that was rampant under the Mughals in 17th century India. Guru Tegh Bahadur took the fight forward and made the ultimate sacrifice. He was beheaded for standing up to the Mughals. His grandfather, Guru Arjan Dev, had done the same. He too was assassinated by the Mughals. Guru Tegh Bahadur's term as Guru ran from 1665 to 1675. During this period, he travelled across India to spread the teachings of Guru Nanak. He set up community kitchens and wells wherever he went. In the late 17th century, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb imposed the Sharia law across his empire. Non-Muslims were slapped with the jizya tax. Many forcibly converted. Kashmiri Pandits were among them. It is believed that those who fled forced conversions sought refuge with Guru Tegh Bahadur. The Guru travelled to Delhi to dissuade Aurangzeb from the religious imposition. Some say that Aurangzeb asked the Hindus to bring someone who was willing to sacrifice himself for their religion, and Guru Tegh Bahadur volunteered. On the 24th of November 1675, Guru Tegh Bahadur was beheaded in front of a Lahore crowd. He died for the Hindus. His death is considered among the greatest humanitarian sacrifices the world has ever seen. Guru Tegh Bahadur stands for sacrifice, universal brotherhood, religious freedom, and peace. The Guru's story is similar to that of Indian farmers who toiled to feed a country of over 1.3 billion people. As global leaders politicize their cause, Indian Prime Minister has sent a symbolic message of solidarity with the farmers by paying tribute to the Sikh Guru who is remembered for his selfless service to people. Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
Let's turn to Nepal now, where Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has called for fresh elections, kicking off a new tussle for power. The political turmoil began on Sunday when an emergency cabinet meeting was called in Kathmandu. Oli recommended that the parliament be dissolved. Hours later, Nepal's president Bidya Devi Bhandari ratified his decision. This announcement might have seemed dramatic to the outside world, but for those who track Nepal's politics, this decision does not come as a surprise. The differences within the Nepal Communist Party, the ruling party, had become insurmountable. There were two power camps, one led by KP Sharma Oli, the other by Pushp Kamal Dahal, better known as Prachand. These differences had become public. Both of them held several rounds of talks in recent months, but they were unable to settle their disputes. With each camp vying for more power, the divisions grew wider. In 2017, Oli and Prachand had merged their respective parties to create the Nepal Communist Party. This party won a majority in the last general election. Now the two camps are fighting, so Oli decided to dissolve the parliament more than a year before the 2022 general election. The move has led to protest, both from the opposition as well as from Oli's own party. Today, the Prime Minister defended his decision. He delivered an address to the nation and said that the rift within his party was affecting the functioning of his government. According to him, the elected government was, quote-unquote, pushed to a corner. Nepal will have fresh elections now. They'll be conducted in two phases next year. Phase 1 of polling is scheduled for the 30th of April, Phase 2 for the 10th of May. This is not an unprecedented situation for Kathmandu. At least 3 prime ministers in the past have called for a dissolution of parliament. In 1991, Girija Prasad Koirala was heading a majority government in Nepal, but he dissolved the parliament in 1994. Again, over infighting within his own party, the matter went to Nepal's Supreme Court. The judges ruled in favour of a fresh mandate. Koirala was replaced by Manmohan Adhikari, the first democratically elected Communist Party member to become Prime Minister. Within his first year, he tried to dissolve the parliament because of a call for no confidence vote. But this time, the Supreme Court deemed Adhikari's move unconstitutional. The vote of no confidence happened. Ultimately, Adhikari was voted out of power in 1995. Sher Bahadur Deuba served as Nepal's Prime Minister thrice, never for a full 5-year term. His second term lasted barely a year, from 2001 to 2002. He dissolved the House of Representatives in 2002 to call for fresh elections, but they did not happen due to the civil war. Ultimately, King Gyanendra removed Deuba in October 2002 after terming him incompetent. Deuba was restored as Prime Minister in 2004 but removed once again in 2005. The king dissolved the parliament for 3 years and seized direct power. And in all these instances, it came down to whether a government could survive, if an alternative alliance or arrangement could be stitched to replace the present government. For now, it seems like the differences within the Nepal Communist Party are beyond repair. A fresh mandate seems like the best way forward. Sky watchers are in for a special treat tonight. It's called the Great Conjunction, a phenomenon last observed in 1623. During this time, Jupiter and Saturn attempt a celestial dance. It is the closest that these two planets get while passing each other. Our next report tells you how to gear up for this once-in-a-lifetime experience.
It is the night of the Great Conjunction, a once-in-a-lifetime celestial event. Two of the largest planets in the solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, are all set for a tantalizingly close pass. So close that they will appear like a single star in the sky. In biblical lore, it's called the Star of Bethlehem. The science is actually pretty simple. It's like any long-distance race. The faster runner will inevitably lap the slower ones. Here, Jupiter is the fast one, lapping the Sun in 12 years. Saturn, on the other hand, takes 30. Every 2 decades, Jupiter catches up with Saturn, eventually passing it. This is called a conjunction. But this year, we're witnessing a super conjunction. It is the closest Jupiter and Saturn will ever be. The last time this happened was in 1623, almost 400 years back. But that wasn't a nighttime conjunction. This one is, which is why it promises to be a spectacular show. The best part is you don't need military-grade binoculars to see the event. Just step onto your balcony or terrace at the right time. In India, that's around midnight. Spotting the two planets should be easy enough. Jupiter will be among the brightest stars in the sky, and to find Saturn, look to the top right of Jupiter.
What you're seeing now is Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, Jupiter's the really bright round thing, Saturn's the oblong bright thing. So what we've done is we've switched to very high sensitivity here to try and see the moons as much as we can.
With a small telescope, you may even be able to spot Saturn's rings and Jupiter's moons. That's how close the two planets are. When the conjunction reaches its climax, the two planets will be separated by just 0.1 degrees. Negligible from down here on Earth, but in reality 450 million miles of space separates the two planets. The next close pass is expected in March 2080, but it is unlikely to be as spectacular as this one. So break out your cameras and keep your fingers crossed for a cloudless night. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The Christmas season has finally arrived in Saudi Arabia. Glittery ornaments are up for sale at gift shops in Riyadh. This is happening in a country which has long been notorious for enforcing Islamic traditions and prohibiting Western practices. But now the kingdom is embracing inter-religious exchange. What is driving this transformation, and what do expats living in Saudi Arabia have to say about it? Here's a report.
Christmas trees, glittering ornaments, and Santa Claus outfits. What was once an unthinkable sight in the cradle of Islam has now become a reality. The Christmas festival sale has crept into Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. It is a sign of changing times.
I did not ever imagine to see Christmas trees or decorations in Saudi Arabia. When I came and saw the Christmas tree, which had an affordable price in comparison to its size, I was surprised.
For decades, Christmas sales have largely been underground in Saudi Arabia. Expats from around the world had to celebrate the festival behind closed doors. Because the Arab Kingdom has long considered all Western practices as a deviation from Islam. Arch conservatives have prohibited the public celebration of any foreign festival. But things look slightly different this year. Christmas items are for sale at gift shops across Riyadh. Expats from different nationalities are delighted at the loosening social restrictions.
Yeah, for now it's good than before, because now it's open to everybody. We can check, we can decorate also in his house like this. Before it's not doing like this before, right? So that now, for now it's good. It's better for us, for everything.
Saudi Arabia has slowly been pushing for inter-religious exchange. In recent years, it has hosted officials from the Vatican as well as Jewish figures. School textbooks, once notorious for denigrating non-Muslims, are undergoing revisions. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is striving to steer the conservative kingdom towards an open and moderate Islam. He is trying to curb the influence of the once powerful religious police. The opening up of Christmas shops is yet another step in the right direction. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
If you think 2020 is done being cruel to you, wait till you hear the next story. And I don't like telling it, but this is what's happening in our world. Brain-eating amoeba is spreading in the United States. I'm not making this up. Scientists say there has been an increase in the number of cases being reported from Midwestern states. I'm sure not a lot of you must have heard about this parasite, so let me quickly tell you what brain-eating amoeba is. I'm referring to US Center for Disease Control and Prevention. It says brain-eating amoeba is a free-living amoeba. It can cause a rare and devastating infection to the brain. Where is it found? Around the world. The amoeba can be found in warm, fresh water, like lakes and rivers. It can be found in hot springs, warm water discharged from industrial plants, poorly maintained swimming pools, water heaters, and soil. Experts say you cannot be infected by drinking contaminated water. But if the water enters your nose, you are at risk. The amoeba travels from the nose to the brain. It then destroys the brain tissue, causes brain swelling, and ultimately kills the victim. Sounds like a scary movie? Well, scientists say that the brain-eating amoeba could be expanding range due to increased temperature caused by climate change. In other words, we are all to be blamed for this scare. This amoeba grows best at temperatures up to 46 degrees Celsius. Scientists say that it is now moving towards northern United States. How do you know if you are infected with this brain-eating amoeba? The CDC has put out a list of symptoms. Initial symptoms include headache, fever, nausea, or vomiting. As the infection spreads, a person may experience a stiff neck, loss of balance, seizures, hallucination. 34 infections have been reported in the United States in the last 10 years. 30 of those people who were infected by recreational water. The family of a 6-year-old boy recently sued the American city of Lake Jackson. This is after the child was killed by brain-eating amoeba found in the city's water supply. The parasite also killed a 12-year-old boy in India in June this year. In 2019, it killed a 10-year-old from the Indian state of Kerala. So far, the amoeba has been detected on every continent except Antarctica. At least 260 cases have been reported globally till date. The only way to stop falling prey to this parasite is by avoiding untreated water. Now, the battle for the Wuhan virus has delivered not just a vaccine at record speed, but also a spike in demand for billions of syringes needed to administer it. One German factory is working 24/7 to meet this global demand. Here's the story.
The machines at Almo's factory in Hessen, Germany are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Almo is Germany's leading syringe manufacturer. Every year, Almo churns out more than 2 billion syringes of various kinds. 64 syringes with pistons are assembled every 13 seconds at this manufacturing plant. Destined for use in Germany and more than 140 other countries. The demand is expected to soar further due to the pandemic and the vaccination drives starting across the world.
Nein, es wird nicht zu Engpässen in der Versorgung mit Spritzen kommen.
Of course, we immediately increased our capacity. That is to say, we went from a 5-day week to a 7-day week. Our machines now run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Werden kann, aber insgesamt ist es uns möglich, das zu stemmen und auch das zu lösen.
Employees man the assembly lines wearing masks, hairnets and occasionally earplugs. One machine molds high-quality plastic granules into thin 1mm syringes. Another unit spits out the pistons, while the needles are produced by its Malaysian subsidiary. The first orders have already rolled in from Germany's BioNTech, whose vaccine developed with Pfizer is already being administered in some countries.
Das, was wir getan haben, ist natürlich sofort.
There will be no shortage of syringes, even though the current challenge is big. Therefore, syringes must be distributed intelligently to also supply the usual clients. But we can and will meet the challenge.
Tage die Woche, 24 Stunden, unsere Produktion.
Owned by the Braun family, giants in the medical devices industry, Almo intends to spend 30 million euros on an additional assembly line to cope with increased demand for the COVID-19 vaccine jabs. The German syringe maker already has orders for 500 million syringes for 2020 and 2021. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
With that, it's a wrap. We're leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.
Kapsamında
Ambulans arkadan.
Siber Güvenlik Haftası etkinliklerinin siber vatanımızda, etkinliğimizde savar güvenlik vatanımıza uyguladığı.
Tamam. Kes. Tamam. Kes.